In 1964, and what may count as one of the strangest journeys ever undertaken. Australian Reg Spiers was an athlete who found himself in London without any money and desperate to get home on the other side of the world. But he didn't have any money, so he posted himself in a box from London to Perth with the help of his English friend and fellow javelin thrower John McSorley. We got both of them together to tell the story.
We first met in the 62 Commonwealth Games that were held in Perth, Australia, and we immediately got on.
What do you remember about John, Reg?
He was, it reminded me of myself, you know, blonde bloke, good looking and all the rest of it.
Modest?
We just hit it off. Look, we chase girls, we're very good at that. And
well, we were just out of our teens, you know, both young and...
ready to rock and roll.
And both very accomplished athletes, national champions, record holders at the javelin.
Yeah, we were going well. We were going well at that time and showed a lot of early promise.
And then, Reg, you had plans to, or you had hopes to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics, so you came over to the UK.
Well, I did qualify, but then I got injured. That was the thing, and that's why I went to England. I got on a boat. I worked my way over there on a Norwegian freighter.
And this was in 64?
Yep.
You know, we'd built up a friendship in Australia, and we wrote to each other.
People wrote letters in those days.
And then there's a knock, knock, knock on my door 2 years later, and it's Reg, unannounced. He was over, and fortunately I was able to put him up, and he stayed for about 4 or 5 months. He had a quite unique way of operating, because when he arrived he had no money or anything, and his way of getting around the place was to stand in the middle of the road with his thumb out, and the car had a choice of either running him down or stopping. With a big beaming smile, you know, thanks a lot for stopping. Can you just drop us off up the road there?
I got to work that way and got home that way, and I went to some fabulous parties because of it. People would pick me up, and it was on. It was a great time to be in London.
But as you say, Reg, you got injured, and you weren't going to get to Tokyo for the Olympics, and you wanted to get home to see, you were married by now, you had a little girl, wanted to get home for her birthday.
And there was one catch, I didn't have any money.
Reg, after a little while, got a job, and he was earning some money at the airport. So while he was working there, he was saving up to go home, and then he had his wallet pinched. Everything was turned around then.
So I had to find another way home.
So where did this idea come from to disguise you as air freight?
Oh, I worked for Air France, and I worked in the export cargo section, so I saw animals coming through on aircraft, and it just came to me. I thought, well, wait a minute, hang on a minute. The biggest piece of freight you could put on an aircraft to go to Australia was, I remember, 5 feet by 3 feet by 2.5 feet. That was the biggest that the plane could take.
So this was stone cold sober. You thought, I know, I'll get in a box and send myself home to Australia.
Why not? And I was in a hurry.
John, what did you think when you heard this idea?
Well, when he first came back with this idea, we thought just it was a Regism, you know, he was joking and so on. But there was an intensity about it. And we thought, God, this guy's serious. And I knew Reg, and I thought, he's going to do it regardless. So if he's going to do it, I better make him a box that at least it's going to, you know, get him there.
So how did you go about making this box, John?
He told me it's got to be 5 feet by 3 feet by 2.5. What that did, in fact, because Reg is about 6'2", well built and handsome and all that sort of thing. So 5 feet by 3 feet by 2.5 allows him to sit up with his legs straight or lie back with his legs bent, and also make allowance for his bags that went in there. We also had to consider if it had been put in the cargo shed and the end was up against something, then he'd be trapped in there. So there were 2 false ends in there, and the false ends, all you had to do was turn some wooden gadgets that allowed the ends to go out.
Where did you make this box, John?
Made it largely in the flat, but we found that looking at it in the light, in certain light, you could actually see through the cracks. So we had to line the inside of it with some paper, because He actually went as plastic emulsion.
That's what was written on the box, was it? Plastic emulsion?
That's what was written on the box, to be sent to a Mr. Graham and collected. In '64, things were so easy. We made up the company, fictitious address in London, fictitious address in Perth. Now, we knew the airport was very small and therefore thought that it would be easier for him to get out in Perth Airport than Adelaide Airport. And it was COD.
When you say COD, cash on delivery, so no money paid up front?
No. The object was actually get everything through and then sell the story and pay for the freight charges.
Was your family in Australia aware of this plan, Reg?
No. No, I wouldn't. No, don't worry. You must remember at this time, it never seemed like we were doing anything amazing or remarkable. It was just a couple of bulletproof young fellas think we can pull this off.
Did you give any thought to being discovered or being injured or dying en route?
Well, no, I figured the only thing I could be would be discovered, and then, okay, pinched. What do? You pinched.
We were looking at it that Reg was Australian, so he couldn't be had for illegal entry.
So the big day came, a Saturday in West London. Tell us what happened that day. How did you prepare, Reg?
How do you prepare? You don't prepare. You just get in the box and go.
John, when Reg is getting into this box, what have you put in there for supplies for him?
For supplies, well, he's got a couple of plastic bottles, one to pee in and one to drink. He's got, various food items.
Mainly baked beans. Probably not a good move.
And then
there's a thought.
He's got his bag. He's got a torch,
pillow, and a blanket.
Were you strapped in there, Reg?
Well, there were straps in there, yes.
Yeah.
If they turned the box upside down, which they did one time, it all held me in place.
Now, Reg had an enormous appetite. So we had to slow his system down because we thought, well, we were anticipating probably 30 hours max in the box.
Before you go on, what do you mean you slowed his system down?
Stopped eating.
Stop eating so much because there was no toilets in there for him.
I didn't eat for a week.
In a box.
Literally, you didn't eat for a week?
No, I didn't eat for a week. It was well, I was young.
And then that was it. He was off. We got him to the airport, and then, unbelievably, the fog came down, and the planes didn't take off. And so, I'm thinking, well, Reg is just stuck in that box all night. He didn't take off till the following day.
So what's going on with this box that you're in, Reg, while you're waiting for the plane to take off?
I can see out through the slats, and they had a huge freight shed, and they took the crate in there, and they put it up high.
On a forklift truck, presumably?
Yes, right up. It was really high. And they slotted me in there, so I sat there and waited until the time came, and they had this guy was an apprentice, whatever he was, teaching him how to use the forklift. And he come to get me. And the forks didn't go, how they go all the way through? They didn't go all the way through. So it was teetering on. He lifted it up and the thing was teetering. And I threw myself back a bit and it leveled off. Then he lowered it and pushed it back in again to get me down. So that was a good start.
Oh dear.
And then out to the aeroplane. See you later. Simple as that.
Did you panic at any point, Reg?
No. Well, I never thought of claustrophobia. I'll take it as it comes. I'll write it out, see what happens. I've come for the ride. I might be in this bloody box, but it's the same ride as the people upstairs. It was pitch black most of the way. As simple as that, until they got to airports and the cargo hold opened. So all up, I worked it out. It was about 60 hours in the thing.
What were you thinking about then? If it's pitch black and you can't be reading anything, what are you thinking about in there?
My life up to that point, all sorts of thoughts go through you. But I wasn't frightened. I'm up here, everything's working, I'm breathing, I'm not cold, it's not that comfortable, but I can make it. So I just carried on. The funniest thing was, there was an empty can that I ate. And I got out of the box between London and Paris, dying for a leak, so I peed in this can and put it on top of the box. the plane began to descend, and a little panicky, I jumped back in the box. The can full of pee is still sitting up on top of the box. I thought, here we go, didn't get far. And when it landed in Paris, these French people got on and they were saying some terrible things about the English. I don't speak French, but they're saying Anglais, I'm telling you. And I thought, here I go, I laughed. But they didn't even think of the box. So I kept on going.
So next leg was to Bombay.
Bombay.
Where the freight handlers couldn't read the sign this way up, so...
Yeah, there's the perishable, all that stuff, and they're changing me from one plane to the other. And it's so hot, I've taken all my clothes off, and I'm strapped in, but my feet are up in the air, and I'm sort of on my back at the bottom part. That's all right, I'm sweating like a pig, but not to give up. Wait and see what happens. Eventually, bang, onto another plane. Then I think it went to Singapore, and then I think it went to Perth. I knew when it hit Perth. The hold opened up, and I can't swear on the BBC. These Aussie guys come in and said, this big so-and-so thing, this is not for us, is it? And they, yeah, it's for us, and they carried on a bit. I knew where I was. I'm home. I'm on the soil.
How did that feel to be back in Australia?
Oh, it was terrific, wonderful. I've made it, I pulled it off.
Still one big challenge, though. You've got to get out of that warehouse in Perth.
Well, I knew the procedure, and I knew they would take it to a bond shed. There was cartons of beer in there, and I don't drink them, but I whipped the beer out and had a drink of that and threw it up straight away. Now, from where I could see quite a bit from where I was in this bond shed, and there's a road out over there. So I put on a suit from out of my, so it looked cool. Put on a suit, jumped through the window with my bag, walked out onto the street, thumbed a ride into town.
Just walked out of there?
Just walked out.
Adelaide, though, your destination is still 1,600 miles away, and you've got any money to get there by then?
No. I didn't have any money. I thought I'd hitchhike home. Just get out on the road and hitchhike. I got all the way to Norseman, got a bed for the night from the Salvation Army, got some money from a Catholic priest who bought the ticket for me, got on the train, and bang, I'm home in Adelaide.
John, how many days since you'd heard from Reg?
Well, I was beside myself because I thought I haven't heard from Reg. I haven't heard from him. I really don't, hope nothing's happened to him. So I contacted James Coote, who's a correspondent for a British newspaper, and he knew Reg and he knew me, and I explained the situation to him. And at first he didn't believe me, and then he said, Reg Spiers, he said, yes, I do believe you. Leave it with me. I'll contact a correspondent in Sydney, I believe. And he phoned through, and they flew somebody out, and they found that Reg had just arrived home. He'd actually been back.
2 weeks it was, Johnny.
You hadn't called John, Reg?
No. Well, look, you get back home, and I've been away for a while, and before I know it, I stayed with my parents, and all of a sudden, bang, 2 weeks have gone by, and I thought, I got a telegram. Johnny, he'll know I'm all right. That's what I'm thinking.
Did you make it in time for your daughter's birthday?
Yeah.
Was there a very emotional reunion?
Well, yes, but see, the thing is, I just turned up. They don't know where I am half the time. So I just turned up. Even though I'm on the other side of the world, don't be surprised if he walks through the door.
And your wife?
Was happy to see me, of course.
What did she say when you told her how you'd got home?
She didn't believe me. She didn't believe it. But then she thought about it for a moment. Thought, well, yes, the silly man has done just that.
Because John had alerted the press. I mean, this was now a big story. There were phone-ins on the radio about it. Newspapers descending on journalists descending on Perth Airport. Did it? I mean, you make it sound, Reg, as though this was the most normal thing in the world, but clearly the press thought otherwise.
People in Adelaide knew me. But when this happened, I've never seen anything like it, scared the hell out of my mother. Streets blocked with media, and it would go on for weeks, and it was pretty wild.
Did no one come after you and say, you know what, you owe us however much it cost to freight you over?
Oh, yeah, of course they did. Well, you see, the airline was Air India. They contacted me, and I went into their head office in Adelaide. And they said, what are you going to do about these freight charges? I said, well, look, if you sue me, if you make it difficult for me, you won't do your airline any good. And they went with it. So I did well.
The reverse happened to me because I'd been working for Heinz, and they called me in they chastised me for being involved with the business, and I thought it just shows you the different cultures and how they view things, because they said to me, if anything like that happens again, you'd be looking for a new job.
Did you get a lot of press attention, John, at the time?
No, the story was out there. Instead of us sort of negotiating to sell the story,
I heard afterwards, if we'd known what we were doing, we really could have made some money. But there you go. We're just naive 22-year-olds.
Have you stayed out of crime since?
Well, I try to avoid it, yes.
Because, Reg, you'd been jailed for drug smuggling.
Yes, I have. Because, I did athletics at a time when you never made $1. I just loved it. When I did retire, there was a vacuum, a huge vacuum. And I always live on the edge.
Do you think that you put the same knowledge that you had about how to smuggle yourself into another country into how to smuggle drugs?
Oh yeah, I guess I did. Once the premise by which the customs work probably hasn't changed to this day.
Are you clean now?
No. I'm 73 years old now. It's sometimes in a quiet moment I think, like, I can't believe it all happened. The world is so fascinating, and there's so many strange people in it, and I got my piece.
Reg Spiers and John McSorley, and there's a book about Reg's life called Out of the Box. If you go to our Facebook page, you can see a photo of the box that Reg travelled in. It's not exactly first-class experience. You'll find us by searching for BBC Outlook.